What a time to be alive, eh?
Yep, always.
Welcome to the Sweat, ladies and gentlemen. Jessie, Coffield, Emerson, Lotzia.
You should really think about that for a second.
Like, who am I pointing at when I say that? Here to help you make some smarter decisions. I guess smarter than the decision of me trying to figure out who we are.
Do as we say, not as we do. And we'll be doing that in multiple departments tonight, mainly football and baseball, sports betting, and fantasy. So Let's get right to it. Hello, Steve Buchanan and Greg Ehrenberg. This DK Live duo is here to play some MLB Pickoff.
So, which of the following DK Sportsbook bets do you like more on this ginormous 15-game slate? Steven, let's start with you. The Cubs-Mets matchup is a near pick'em, minus 112 for Chicago, minus 103 for New York. Who do you like to win?
I mean, look, I just don't feel good about laying any money down on the Cubs right now. I mean, they're 5-5 over their last 10. You know, they're barely over 500 at this point. I don't think you actually realize they're only 8 games over 500 right now, and they just don't look good at all. Their bullpen is a mess. And, you know, the Mets have been, they've been treading water a little bit here and there, but they're still very much in contention. And I like the Mets side of this a little bit more. You're getting close to even money in this game here. And Darvish has been having some issues in the second half, too, as well. He hasn't looked as dominant as he has in the first half, so I'm going to side with the Mets on this one.
Gregory, 2 teams on 3-game losing skids right now, but the Cubs are 11-3 in their last 14 against the Mets.
Yeah, so I think the other thing that Steve didn't mention, I agree with Steve, is the Mets are playing at home tonight. That matters a little bit. The other thing, too, Anthony Rizzo's hurt. He's not in the lineup tonight. That hurts the Cubs. And the other thing, too, is not only has Darvish struggled, but Marcus Stroman's been so much better this year. Isn't he already over a full run lower? So I think that there's maybe just a little bit of bias where people go like, oh, the Mets have lost 3 games in a row. It's the Mets. We don't want to trust the Mets. So this line really shouldn't be a pick 'em. I think the Mets should be like fairly decent favorites.
Greg, a couple of interesting underdogs tonight. You can get plus 123 on St. Louis and Milwaukee and plus 125 on the Pirates in Philly. Who are you going with here?
So I don't really love either of them, but if I had to pick one, it's going to be the Cardinals. For DFS tonight, I like Hauser a lot. I know Steve likes Hauser. And the other thing, too, is that if we look at the Brewers' bullpen situation, it's not all that great right now because Hauser typically doesn't work all that deep into games. The last 3 games, the most innings that the Brewers have gotten out of one of their starting pitchers is 5 innings. So the bullpen's a little bit worn down right now. And if I have to pick one of them, I'm going to lean towards the St. Louis side just because of the current state of the Brewers' bullpen.
Steve, you not too hot on either of these either?
Oh, I hate both of these bets. Like I would be nowhere near either of these one here. Like, especially for Pittsburgh, they're running Steven Brault out to the mound. Like, Philly is a really good team against lefties, not to mention against lefties at Citizens Bank Park. So, like, I would be going nowhere near that. And, yeah, I like Adrian Hauser a lot. We'll be talking about him in the best-rated segment on the show, the Put Up Your Bukes.
Yeah.
Yeah, baby. So I can't say I'd be a pretty total fraud if I said I like the Cardinals in this matchup here. So nowhere near any of these bets for me.
Okay, pretty big over-under in Colorado with the Red Sox in town. 13.5 runs. How tasty does that over look, Steven? I was just looking over your cheat sheet.
Oh, well, thank you. You know, I appreciate all the clicks. You know, we like the clicks.
You need them, baby. We all do. I'm a company man.
I think this is like the 3rd time the Rockies have thrown a rookie to make his Major League debut at home in Coors Field this season. Like, I don't know if they're trying to, like, screw with their minds or something, but this is happening again. And it's against the Red Sox, who are just obviously a prolific offense here. So Rick Porcello's going on the mound for the Red Sox. He's been pretty much a gas can almost the entire year. You know, former Cy Young Award winner Rick Porcello, that to you. Yeah, I like the over in this one. The Rockies bullpen, as you imagine, nothing great at home. The Red Sox bullpen, not great at all. So you really have to like the over in this one. It's a huge total. And, you know, I understand if you don't want to take the over in this one. You're looking for 14 runs in a baseball game. But if there's a situation for this to happen, I think this is one of those games.
Yeah, Greg, where do you sit on this? You like the idea of the Red Sox just teeing off on a rookie?
This is such an unfair situation to put Rico Garcia in.
It really is.
For one thing, he's not like a rated prospect. Like, I was looking at Fangraphs, he's like the 18th best prospect in the Rockies organization. In AAA this year, he's a 7.16 ERA. And they're just like, all right, so you're starting at home, Coors Field, the best hitter's park ever against the Red Sox, who have a pretty good offense. I just don't get it. Like, like Steve said, like, what are they trying to prove? What's the goal of this? What's the upside? You just, like, this kid's just out for slaughter. Like, the best case scenario from what? He goes like 5 innings, gives up 5 runs or something. So I think that this is a really good spot to target the Red Sox. Obviously for DFS, it's not a contrarian opinion. Everybody's going to say that. They have a ridiculously high implied run total. Like, I would be fairly surprised if they don't score like 6, 7, 8 runs tonight.
Two pitchers have super high strikeout projections on this slate. Both Justin Verlander and Walker Buehler have over-unders of 8.5 Ks. Ooh. Who do you like to hit the over more, Verlander against the Rays or Buehler against the Padres?
So for me, it's Walker Buehler. When Fernando Tatis first got hurt, Steve and I were on the show at the time. We talked about how bad the Padres offense was going to be going forward, and particularly against right-handed pitching, how strong it was going to be to target them. We're looking for the year 87 WRC plus against right-handed pitching, highest K rate in the National League against righties. Walker Buehler's also been really solid this season, really good strikeout pitcher, 10.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. It's just a bad Padres offense without Tatis in there. I think that the other thing also to consider is when we're just comparing these two pitchers, it's a much easier matchup for Buehler than it is for Verlander against a fairly tough Rays offense.
Steve, I read your article and I saw that you like Verlander to go over 8.5 Ks.
I mean, how can you not write the guy who's struck out at least 10 in 7 straight starts? And it's against teams that, strike out fairly much. But then also in the mix there is the Indians, who have been one of the toughest teams in the league to strike out. And just the way that Verlander has been pitching over this 7-game stretch, he has a 45.1 K percentage. Like, just think about that for a second. He's striking out almost half the batters he's faced in 7 straight starts now. It's like almost unprecedented how many strikeouts he's been racking up as of late. It's got to come crashing down at some point. You can't expect that type of output every single night. But the Rays are about league average when it comes to Ks against righties. It's not like it's a very tough matchup in that department. The Rays are slightly better against righties than they are lefties, but Verlander is absolutely locked in right now. If he's not giving up home runs, he's striking out guys. So I'm going to go with Verlander in this one. The odds have moved since they were this morning. Obviously, people are hammering that 8.5 total, and rightfully so. So, like I said, 7 straight starts of at least 10 or more strikeouts. So I'm just going to keep riding Verlander in this one.
All right, I'm going to read Greg's article now in the DK Playbook about top fantasy baseball targets because we need you guys in about 18 minutes for a DFS look at this slate. I'm going to catch up with Jake the Snake Marisnick, who loves to play fantasy football with his grandfather. But first, Pat Mayo, talk to us.
Cheap chalk running backs are pretty much the only place in DFS NFL in tournaments that I am excited to play chalk. I think most of the other places you want to be cognizant of what your opportunities are, but usually with those cheap chalk running backs, they're competing against very few players priced similarly to them where they're getting that amount of volume. You want to take advantage of that and not worry too much about ownership in those situations.
Okay. The late swap feature on DraftKings, where you can move a guy out after the 1 o'clock games or just before the 1 o'clock games, and if they haven't played yet. First of all, you always want to put a late swap player in your flex, someone from the later games that you can make adjustments to. Drew, why is that so important?
It's super important because nobody does it. I shouldn't say nobody does it, but very few people do it. And so what you're doing is you're giving yourself more decisions than your opponent and more opportunities to beat your opponent. And whether it's in tournaments, whether it's in cash games, head-to-heads, double-ups, whatever it is, the more decisions you have to be able to best your opponent, the better you are in terms of being able to realize value. So take advantage of late swap, use it to your advantage. If a team gets from behind, don't quit on that team. Find ways to be different to potentially resurrect that team and salvage some min cashes.
Yeah, so Mike, if you're thinking about late swapping, let's say you have a disastrous early slate of games and you know that you are playing from behind, you need to late swap. What's the best course of action there? Like, who do you late swap onto? Do you just have to go off the chalk plays? And conversely, if you smash in the early games, if you had a riskier player in your flex spot and you're ahead in one of these tournaments or very high up, would you then want to go onto a chalkier player?
I think the first scenario is easier where you're behind, you're clearly behind, you've had some landmines and some mistakes where you absolutely have to pivot off the chalk. Again, it can be a scenario where you just drop down to the second or third best value. I'll never forget the week where I was like drawing dead after the 1 o'clock games. A situation happened in Seattle where Thomas Rawls was the starting running back, plugged him in everywhere, even though I left salary on the table. And very fortunate, very lucky. He had an insane game. I cashed a ton of those lineups. It was a very low probability event to occur, but it was greater than 0, which is where my lineup would have been if I did not make the swap. And any edge over the course of the season, over multiple seasons that you can get is going to make a big difference over the long term. Now, if you have a lineup that smashes out of the gate, I'm really conflicted on this because I think, again, it comes down to what type of contest you're in. If you're playing cash games, you definitely want to chalkify that lineup if you get a good start. Even if you think maybe they're a little bit worse plays, but there's going to be a huge disparity in ownership, take the higher owned guys and pretty much solidify that cash game. Now, if it's tournaments, if I'm in a 200-man contest and I'm looking really good, I may chalk that up a little bit. If I'm in one of the really large field contests, my tendency is to let it ride unless it's just like a super crazy play I can pivot off of. But I kind of let it ride in those scenarios just because it's really hard to tell all the different options and combinations that are behind you that could be perfect as well. And there's probably still some equity in being a bit contrarian in the really large field tournaments, even if you are off to that, quote unquote, perfect start.
All right, it's good to be back on your screen. It's good to have Jake Marisnick here as well. What's good, man?
Not much. Just at the stadium right now, getting ready for a series against we're playing the Rays.
Yes, yeah, there you go. I'm glad you remembered. It's all good.
Yeah, it took me a second. Sorry, the days mixed together. It's a long season.
Yes, it is. Hell, man, I can't even remember what the hell I had for breakfast, so it's all good. Let's start off, though. I want to turn back the clock. Traded from Miami to Houston here during the 2014 season. I'd say it's been a good move for you. Teams making the playoffs almost every year. Guys winning the Cy Young, MVP, Rookie of the Year, left and right. What's it been like to be around such a successful bunch?
It's been a lot of fun. Like you mentioned, I came over here from Miami and in 14. It was kind of still the end of that rebuild process, and got to know some of these guys, Altuve, Springer. And been playing with them for a while now, and to watch everybody grow into the players they are and see the additions we brought in. This is so much fun playing here. We got so many good players, and we keep bringing in more good players. So it's a great place to play right now.
Yeah, a great year in 2017. You were on the roster, but because of an injury, you didn't get to play in the playoffs. That was the year your boys obviously won the World Series. How hard was it watching from the dugout?
That was one of the hardest things I've had to do. That's something we all dreamed about as kids, is playing in the World Series and being out there running around. So when I got hurt, when I first did it, we didn't think it was that serious, just kind of the symptoms. And then I found out it was a broken thumb, and I was actually pretty close to being activated for that series, but I wasn't able to gear up all the way and be ready to play.
Michael Brantley's been a huge get for you guys, for Houston. Having a career year. Describe the spark that he brought to this team.
I don't know if I call it a spark. I call it consistency.
Okay,
he's
that's
the most
good.
consistent player I think I've ever seen him in my time in baseball. It's unbelievable. He comes to the field. He's got the same routine he does every single day, and that rubs off on guys, rubbing off on guys that are around him, and it's changing a lot of careers and a lot of seasons guys are having. You look at, what George Springer's doing, and George has bought into kind of Brantley's routine. There's a lot of guys that have, and he's been great on and off the field.
Major league leading .338 batting average, and I hear his six-pack is quite impressive.
Yeah, I don't know how he gets it, man. He eats a lot of pizza and stuff. I've been asking what the secret is. He works hard though. He's in the gym a lot. He's always working. Is
he just always just banging out crunches in the clubhouse? What is it, man?
I don't know. He got good genes, and he works hard. He's in the weight room quite a bit. I don't think he gets enough credit for that. But he's always in there doing a lot of maintenance stuff. So it's part of his routine. Yep. So I think the abs come with it. I might have to jump on that train. For sure, dude. You got to train insane, or you stay the same, buddy. Exactly. Justin Verlander, Garrett Cole, both making cases to win the Cy Young Award this season with nearly identical numbers. Kind of crazy. How much would you like to see them give out a co-Cy Young Award this year? They both deserve it. They both. Every time they take the mound, they give us a really good chance to win. They're two of the best, and I think their numbers reflect that. They're awesome in the clubhouse. They're awesome guys that hang around. And anytime I get to play center field behind them, sometimes it gets a little boring. All right, let's lighten the mood here a little bit. Back in March, you're doing this hidden camera prank at an Academy Sports and Outdoors store where you posed as an employee with your teammate here, Tyler White. Did customers know they were being pranked? How successful did this go? It was actually pretty good. It was funny. It was probably 50-50. Yeah. A few people recognized us when they walked in, and we kind of told them what was going on, and they tried to give it away the best they could. They were standing around watching, and we had to tell them to kind of move back. So when when other people came in. I mean, we had some fun with it. I don't think a lot of people knew.
How good of a salesman are you?
I was pretty good. I don't know if you've seen the video, but I was trying to sell, I forget what, like a volleyball, said it was a soccer ball or sorry, no, the other way around. And I don't know. It wasn't great. People kept running away from me.
Yeah. All right. So maybe not a career you're thinking about after baseball then.
There's room for improvement. So who knows? Maybe I'll focus on that and get a little better at it.
I hear you're already pretty good, though, at like Fortnite. I guess you got your own Twitch channel. You play other people out there. I mean, where would you rank yourself among other Major League Baseball players, among the ones who play Fortnite?
I'd say number one on this team. We got a few. We got probably 10 or so guys that play on this team. And I have a hard time playing with them because they all bring me down. So.
Yeah. You're not building like an all-star Fortnite lineup with other guys in the clubhouse. Then is what you're telling me.
Yeah, there's some guys that they play a lot, but they just never get any better. I mean, you got Reddick in there every day playing, and I think he's getting worse at this point.
All right, so like David Price, like Blake Snell, some of these other guys, Trevor May, Brett Phillips. I hear they all play. I mean, which one of them is the best?
I haven't had a chance to play with any of them or see them play, so I don't know.
Okay.
I'd have to get in there. Maybe jump in there with them, see if we can get some W's.
All right, a couple weeks ago, a major life moment for you, a major life change. You become a dog dad, welcoming 2 adorable golden retriever puppies to the family with your girlfriend, Tex and Cal. Where do the names come from?
Just from, I grew up in California and then out here in Texas for a lot of time, for about 6-7 years now. So kind of just went with Tex and Cal, just California, Texas, shortened. And I love them. They're the best. Except for when they wake me up early. They make sure I'm up at 8 o'clock every day doing something.
I was just going to ask you, how, as a fellow dog dad myself, how has life changed for you? Is it just like earlier wake-up calls?
Yeah, early wake-up calls. We just had Players Week, and I don't know if you saw my nickname, Big Fudge.
Uh-huh.
So I got a dog, another dog. I got it back in AA when I was I was actually rooming with Christian Yelich and JT Realmuto, and I got another dog then. It's Little Fudge, and I raised him by myself. I didn't have a girlfriend or anything, and I raised him, and I swore I would never do it again. I was like, I'm never getting a dog again, middle of the season. And fast forward to now, and I got 2 more.
Jake Marisnick, man, best of luck the rest of the way. Good luck in the playoffs. Hope you absolutely crush it, dude.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
All right, man.
Brendan Glasheen here, and with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. Retirement announcements and reasoning have ruled the NFL news cycle the last few days. First, Andrew Luck stunned everyone over the weekend, and Tuesday, in less shocking fashion, Rob Gronkowski confirmed his retirement from the league. The ex-Patriots tight end announced a partnership with CBD Medic in New York and fielded questions from the audience about his football future. Things got emotional. Gronk said football was bringing him down, but if he has the desire, feels passionate about the game again, and feels the need to be out on the field, he would go back. Here's Gronk. It could be the case in 6 months. It could be the case in 2 years. Could be the case in 3 years. Could be the case in 3 months. But I truly don't see it in the foreseeable future in like a week or a month. Whoa, wait a second. The All-Pro tight end said he could play right now if he wanted, hands down. But come on, Gronk, which one is it? If you define foreseeable future as a week or a month, what's 3 months mean? 6 months? Those would mean this year. That's foreseeable too. Something tells me after this announcement today, this is not the last we'll hear from Rob Gronkowski. I'm sure we will hear more in the foreseeable future.
Are you prepared to enjoying everything the NFL has to offer again? Why can't I read the damn prompter tonight? Good, there you are. Hey, how
really
you doing?
typed
Jeff
it
Ulrich
like
and
that.
Reed T. Fowler. It's our NFL panel. We do have one more week of meaningless football, guys, before the real deal is here. Patience, though. It'll all pay off.
Yeah, so let's talk a little more about it with these guys. As you can see, they are up on your screen playing What Are the Odds? So who do you like to win each AFC division based on DK Sportsbook odds? And bonus, also, who do you like to come in last?
Yes.
Just throwing that one out there right now.
Okay, so start thinking.
Think on your feet.
Thinking about it. We don't have time to fill or anything. We just wanted to hear what you guys think. I'll start this one though. Okay, the AFC South. Yeah. Yeah.
So weird that you gave yourself this one.
Yeah, it is bizarre, right? Just happened to be the order we were going in. Texans plus 125. I mean, Lamar Miller's out. They have one of the worst offensive lines in the league. The Jaguars plus 250. Titans plus 375. Marcus Mariota, who knows if he can stay healthy. The Colts, no more Andrew Luck. Jeff, it's our boys or bust down in the 904, isn't it? That's the best bet here.
I mean, look, I admit the Colts at plus 500 are still a little bit tempting. They still got a good offensive line, a good defense. But I was on the Jags before this Andrew Luck news came out. I'm still on them at plus 250. You look at this division. Who else upgraded at quarterback, upgraded a top 5 defense with the addition of Josh Allen, who's absolutely demolished people in preseason. I don't care what you think about Nick Foles. He's an upgrade against Blake Bortles. They brought in a really solid offensive coordinator. You look at the other teams in this division, Texans might be trading away Jadeveon Clowney. They're going in without Lamar Miller. We know what happened to the Colts. The Titans are just the Titans. I love the Jags in this spot. I still like this at plus 250 a lot.
All right, who do you think finishes last in this division?
Yeah, I'm going to take the Titans. I just don't really – I mean, again, they're drafting wide receivers for a low-volume passing offense. It makes no sense to me. Their defense is still solid. I think the Colts are a well enough run under Frank Reich that they won't hit the bottom, so I'm going to pick Tennessee.
All right, Reed, we know the Jags defense is going to have a turnaround year, back to that 2017 form. Nick Foles, you need Leonard Fournette to kind of carry the load there, shoulder some of that offense. They seem like a pretty attractive bet.
I didn't know this was a Jaguar show, but it always is when we have you at the helm.
And Jeff, bro. And Jeff, he's new.
No, I know. It's pretty incessant on Twitter. You guys have this love affair with the Jags, but look, I'm joining this train. At plus 250, I think you guys are right.
We broke Reed.
I hate to say it.
Reed,
look,
Reed, blink twice. Blink twice if you need help. Oh my God!
All right, 3 times. He's good.
So look, I tried to choose Houston. I really tried to, and when you look at that, their starting schedule, it's really tough. I mean, they start with the Rams, the Saints, the Jags, Chargers. And, that's really tough. So, with Houston, and Jeff mentioned it, with an offensive line that's a little bit shaky, running back situation, even though they have Duke Johnson there, and there's a lot of positive signs, you still think that offensive line does have some issues. Jacksonville, and you look at just their schedule, it's even though they have the 3rd or 4th hardest schedule per FB schedules, it still looks like it's the easiest path for these guys at that number. It's just a value at plus 250. So I do agree with these guys. And the Titans, like Jeff mentioned, I think the Titans have a really good shot at finishing last. Just when you look at their game scripts and you look at the talent they have on that team, it just kind of scares you just a little bit.
Mariota's going to go down with an injury, and it's going to be Ryan Tannehill.
He's going to have that the old tingly hand back. You hate to see that.
Yeah, Mariota. Dude. He does always have a tingly hand.
Yeah, that was like the medical diagnosis. They were like, yeah, he's got that tingle.
I know, it sounds like Doc McStuffins was the one.
What's going on?
Okay, Reed, what about the AFC North? Browns and Baker Mayfield plus 140, Steelers plus 160.
No Antonio Brown anymore.
Ravens plus 300, Bengals plus 1,800. Who are you going with here, Reed, to win it and to come in last?
Yeah, well, I think the Bengals are an easy one for last place there. I mean, it's going to be a tough test. New coach who, does show some promise. But when you just look at this team and you look at this division, I think Baltimore has a really good shot. I know Jeff's going to choose Cleveland, so I'll leave that to him. So Baltimore, just with what they've done, they won it last year at 9-7, and I think that's where this division is going to sit, where this 9 or 10 win team is really going to take it forward. And then Lamar Jackson in his second year, you see what they did with the draft. Mark Ingram is not a superstar, but he's going to be able to move the chains, and they have a lot of good talent on that team. Harbaugh has this team, and that defense, it's not that bad. This defense is always one of the tops. You look at Pittsburgh, and even though they still have some of their key players, I think this is a real shot for Cleveland out here to take a huge step forward. I don't think Baltimore is too far behind, so for value, give me Baltimore.
Jeff, that's your boy Andy Dalton who's coming in last.
Oh, my gosh.
I mean, look, this one, I think I'm not really on the Ravens like Reed. I'm going to talk about the Ravens a bit in a sec, but I think it's completely between the Browns and Steelers, and I do think it is really close. Obviously, I'm bullish on the Browns. I think it does a little bit come down to schedule. The Browns, to me, have a really favorable schedule. Obviously, under Freddie Kitchens, they were pretty successful. I don't think it's necessarily going to be smooth sailing. There's obviously going to be some bumps in the road. I think the Steelers have a very good defense, but you look what happened to the Steelers last year. I mean, Cleveland almost beat them with Hugh Jackson week 1. They probably should have won that game. So I don't really see any reason why the Browns can't come in, grab a couple more division wins, at least split the series with Pittsburgh and just take advantage of their softer schedule. So I'm going to lean Cleveland. I fully admit, though, I think the Steelers are still in position where they can have enough talent. They made some really savvy draft picks. I'm going to go with the Ravens for last year. And it's not just that anti-Reid thing. I really think that the schedule is going to pop up on this team. They lost a lot of interior linemen on defense. Terrell Suggs, CJ Mosley is gone. It's a pretty big loss up there. I mean, they lost a lot of veteran players. It's going to be interesting to see how they react. And like I said, the schedule is just not kind to the Ravens. If anything happens to Lamar Jackson, I really think this team might tank. So I'm going to take the Ravens for last.
Out in the wild, wild west, Chiefs heavy favorites, -167. The Chargers, still no Melvin Gordon, +180. Maybe they'll trade him to Houston. They need a running back now. Broncos, +1,300. I mean, Joe Flacco. Meh. And Raiders. Reed's Raiders, +1,700. Good grief. But Helmetgate's over. So I don't know if these odds were, drawn up before or after Helmetgate. But let's
Probably
go ahead
after.
and take your pick here, Jeff.
This one's pretty simple in the fact that it really does come down to two teams here. There's no sneaking up by the Broncos or the Raiders. It's going to be the Chargers or the Chiefs. I'm going to lean the Chiefs for a simple reason. I mean, the Chargers under Phillip Rivers have had one season where they won more than 9 games over the past 11 years, and that was last year. But you remember, I mean, Anthony Lynn in his first year as head coach, they had a losing season. Like, I don't really buy into Anthony Lynn as a consistent, 10-win coach. Andy Reid, we know, is a consistent 10-win coach because he was winning 10 games a year without Patrick Mahomes. He won 11 last year, or it was more than 11, with Patrick Mahomes his first year. Now we get Patrick Mahomes in his second year. They brought in a little bit of help with it, like Frank Clark in defense. I think the Chiefs, even at minus money here, is the play. I understand people loving that Chargers defense going for the plus money, but I think the Chiefs repeat. And for last, it's the Broncos. Clearly, yeah. I hate the moves they've made on offense. I just don't like the talent there. Mentioned Joe Flacco. I think at least the Raiders with Derek Carr and Antonio Brown, a little bit of improvement on defense. I think they'll at least be semi-competitive, but give me the Broncos for last.
Flacco doesn't hand Denver kind of a slight slight edge in that department?
A slight odd?
What am I talking about today? All
right,
no
faith. The whole show has tingly hand.
Tingly between the ears for Lotzia there. Look, when you look at the Broncos, and Jeff's right, I mean, you really don't like that offense, but that defense, you look at Vic Fangio and what he's been able to do in Chicago and where he's been, that defense still presents a lot of, is going to present a lot of issues. Jeff's right, they're not going to sneak up on anyone, but some of these 50-50 games, whether it be the Chargers, the Raiders that they have, they could win some of them. I'm not saying that the Raiders are going to be in last place, but at the same time, I think the Broncos aren't necessarily as bad as we think because of that defense. It's still his first year in Vic Fangio, but it's going to be the Chiefs, right? The Chiefs, you're laying money, but still, the Chiefs are so good. The moves that they've made, they're just in the offseason, Damian Harris or Damon Williams, these guys looking really good in the offseason. Even if Patrick Mahomes regresses in his production, this team is looking good. Their defense still a little suspect, but they've made moves as well. But if you just look at it, if there's any argument for the Chargers, it's their schedule. KC has a tough schedule, but if you look at the Chargers schedule, they start out 49ers, Colts, Lions, Texans, Dolphins, Broncos, Tennessee, and Pittsburgh. Like, the Chargers could win the majority of those games to start, and if they get a hot start, then we could potentially see this move a little bit. But for right now, it's the Chiefs.
And then they'll do what they always do and lose in the wild card round to the Patriots.
Yeah, their kicker will miss 5 kicks in a row and
speaking of the Patriots, up here in our neck of the woods, the AFC East. Talk about heavy favorites. Patriots -590, Jets +650, Bills +1,000, Dolphins +3,300.
Hello
Jeff,
down there.
who's the best bet here to win it, and who do you think is going to come in last?
Well, I mean, look, I'm going to talk about this from 2 angles. First, the Patriots. Obviously, they're the bet. And I say that meaning that they're almost certainly going to win this division. But I actually think these odds could be a little bit higher. I think they're getting pushed down a bit to -600 or -590 because people are so bullish on the Jets. They think they're actually going to have a shot at taking out the Patriots this year. I think this line should be more like plus 800 or close to a plus 1,000. So I don't even mind that. The second thing I want to mention is, why are the Dolphins plus 3,300? Like, why are they 5 times bigger than the Jets? There's not a shot in heck that the Dolphins are 5 times worse than the Jets or 3 times worse than the Bills. So I know it sounds a little crazy, but like putting a tiny bit of money here on the Dolphins, it's not that crazy. If something happens to Tom Brady or something, you're getting humongous odds. It's a team who's trying to get Jadeveon Clowney. So obviously I think the Patriots are going to win this division. I don't even hate those odds, but the Dolphins' number is kind of interesting for how big it is.
Not a chance in heck, Reed.
I didn't think he was going to.
The show PG, Jesse, okay? Come on.
I appreciate that, Jeff.
Like Jeff cares about that. Yeah, there's no way. Look, if you're putting money on the Dolphins, don't expect it to return. I get that number is enticing. Like Jeff and I all talk about golf, and plus 3,300 is even a nice golf line. But for the Dolphins, they are probably going to challenge for being one of the worst teams in the NFL, along with one of the worst defenses. Kiko Alonso, these guys, Rashad Jones, there's trade rumors that their star safety was on his way out. And so plus 3,300 for the Dolphins, they are going to be the worst. Brian Flores still has a lot to do. We don't know who's going to be in that backfield. We don't even know who's going to be at quarterback. But it's in the Patriots. It's death, taxes, and the Patriots winning the AFC East. This is always going to happen until Tom Brady, until Belichick leave. It's going to be them. I would argue that the Jets make the biggest leap in this division to give them at least a run for their money, even something close to it. I mean, plus 650, at least that gives you some chance of getting positive money. Better offensive line with the Jets.
Before you consider the Jets, though, go look at their starting schedule. Because
I'd rather put money on the Jets than the Dolphins. I mean, if we're just going to throw money away, give me the Jets who have a better team than the Dolphins.
I'm just going to add more money to my Jags bet, but that's...
Yeah, okay, well, yeah, of course, but no one's betting the Dolphins. And if it's not going to be the Patriots, I think the Jets are going to be second, Bills third, and the Dolphins just in way last place.
Half of Brian Flores' players down there hate him right now, too.
Yeah, it's the Patriot way.
It is the Patriot way. And Brian Flores is not Bill Belichick. Quick and dirty, dudes. Thank you so much. We got MLB Price Check to get to following this little Tuesday tidbit from the Between the Lines podcast.
Obviously, there's only one top 25 matchup at all, and that's Oregon versus Auburn. And Will, I know you had thoughts on that game.
Give me Oregon plus money at home. Give me the future NFL quarterback. He
could have been the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah. So give me all of that. Give me plus money on Oregon money line at home.
Gary, do you have any thoughts on Justin Herbert and just?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's got to come down to the quarterback battle, and it's kind of shocking. I know in terms of just conference performance, I can understand why the SEC would get credit over a Pac-10 that has been, undeniably weak and underwhelming the past 2 seasons. But at the same time, you've got Herbert versus a true.
They've been so weak they had to add 2 more teams.
Yeah, exactly. Well, but against a true freshman quarterback, I mean, it's the first time Auburn has rolled out a true freshman quarterback since the 1940s to start their first game. It just really seems like that matchup dramatically favors Oregon.
I'm really surprised Auburn's favored, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, and look, if you look at the last 11 non-conference games Auburn's played, against the spread, they're 3-7-1. So it's not like they've had a ton of success when they get to leave the big bad SEC either. So I think I would just take the home team as a home dog here with, like Will said, the much better quarterback.
To be clear, the game is at AT&T Stadium.
It is a neutral site. Yeah, it's a neutral site. But still, without the home field advantage, I just don't see how we got to 4. I don't know how that number
I'll call that home. Maybe it's the future home of Cowboys quarterback Justin Herbert. I don't know.
Justin Herbert, because the Cowboys are not going to pay Dak $40 million. Apparently, maybe that report wasn't true, but also Dak would deny it. Who knows? $40 million.
A reporter made up something about the Dallas Cowboys? No way.
Never.
Well, that's never happened ever. So that's a great point. It has to be true.
Well, they're not going to pay Dak and they're not going to pay Zeke, so maybe they'll be scouting running backs too.
Yeah, hey, well, Justin Herbert, maybe he wins the Heisman. Everyone forgot about him. He was going to be the number 1 pick last year.
22-1's not that bad. It's not a crazy long shot.
And if he beats Auburn in this week 1 game, the only top 25 matchup, the main game people are going to be watching, in my opinion, he wins that game. He has a good performance against an SEC team. All of a sudden, people are going to start thinking, hey, this guy for Heisman, and then all of a sudden, like you said, the Pac-12 is just very, very weak. My Arizona Wildcats lost to Hawaii in week 0. Just nobody's good, and I have another pick against a Pac-12 school.
I mean, look, everyone just specifically remembers Washington just laying an egg against this same Auburn team. Like, I can understand why there's some trepidation about taking a Pac-10 school against Auburn, but yeah, I think +4 is too good to pass up here.
Yeah, well, there's a game that my favorite one on the board to bet, and that is Kent State +25 at ASU. I know you guys are probably thinking we really want to talk Kent State football right now.
Julian Edelman, baby.
Julian Edelman.
I was going to say, Julian Edelman's obviously proud of you. So
there you go. Well, you mentioned that Auburn's starting a true freshman for the first time since the 40s. Well, ASU is starting a true freshman for the first time ever in school history, and that is Jaden Daniels. I like his future. I like his potential. A great quarterback in high school. Insane numbers. They're just outrageous. But I don't think he's going to be as explosive in his first game with Herm Edwards as coach, who I just don't believe in as a college football coach. I know a lot of people do, but I just don't think he's very forward-thinking. I don't think he's
pretty solid last year with him, for what it's worth.
They didn't finish that strong. They had a couple of good games early, but they didn't finish that season very well. I thought they got pretty lucky in general. And like I said, now they're starting a true freshman quarterback in game 1. Herm Edwards, who he made fun of me in person one time talking about analytics.
There it is. The truth.
No. But it wasn't that he made fun of me personally. It was that he just doesn't believe in analytics. He thinks they're hogwash in every way. And I just think in 2019 that those coaches aren't going to be as successful.
Tyler Sullivan here with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. Lamar Jackson is going to look to his arm just as much as his legs in 2019. While appearing on Mad Dog Sports Radio, the Ravens quarterback said that he's planning on throwing about 30 times a game this season, which is a notable increase from what he saw a year ago. During his 8 starts under center last season, Jackson averaged 23.4 passes a game with a high of 29 attempts, coming in Baltimore's playoff loss to the Chargers on Wild Card Weekend. For fantasy, Jackson was really valuable due to his rushing ability. He logged 147 carries during his rookie campaign for 695 yards and 5 touchdowns. Those rushing attempts will likely continue, as Ravens head coach John Harbaugh said that he would bet the over when asked earlier this summer if Jackson would see similar rushing totals to Cam Newton's 139 attempts in 2017. If he can also incorporate the passing game more efficiently in 2019, we're talking about a QB who has the potential to be the #1 scoring option at the position at the end of the fantasy year.
We're back, Emerson and Jessie. And so is our baseball panel. DK Live's Steve Buchanan and Greg Ehrenberg reporting for MLB Price Check duty.
All right, need you to tell us if you like these players' prices for tonight's slate. Marcus Semien leading all players last evening, that was yesterday, in fantasy points with 34. Dude's just 4,700 tonight against the Royals. Steven, how good of a play is he at that price point?
Yeah, I mean, he's been absolutely crushing it as of late. He's averaging 13.2 DraftKings fantasy points over his last 10 games, 4 doubles, 4 home runs, 13 RBIs in that span. And anytime you want to play him, it's normally against a lefty. He's got a 349 WAR against him, 200 isolated power, and he's going to be facing Mike Montgomery tonight, who is not good. So the Athletics as a whole, it's a really good stack I like tonight as well. The Athletics are extremely better against lefties than they are as righties here. But as a whole, he's not somebody that should be priced 4,700. Yeah. He's a very average hitter at best. They're just riding the hot streak that he's on right now. His salary is going to be coming way down. You'll see it pretty soon once he cools off here. So I don't mind it for tonight because it's against a lefty. If it was against a righty, absolutely not. But I don't mind it here in this spot.
All right, do you mind it, Greg? I mean, before the 34 points last night, he had a big old fat 0 the day before.
Yeah, so he's facing a pretty weak lefty in Mike Montgomery. As Steve said, he's been really good against left-handed pitching pretty much for most of his career, 120 WRC plus against lefties this year. And it's also a really good spot for the A's tonight. They have a 5.8 implied run total. They're kind of one of the higher in projected teams to score runs that nobody's really talking about. So if you're looking for a kind of off-the-board stack to make, I think the A's could be one of the ones to go to, with everybody going to the Coors game. Red Sox, Rockies, Phillies could be a little bit popular. I think the A's could be a contrarian stack.
Tommy Edman has 10 hits in his last 5 games, which means he's a hot commodity, and his price is up $1,000 in that time frame. So are you willing to pay $5K for him tonight against the Brewers, Greg?
No, not a hot commodity. Easy fade for me. I mean, $5,000 for Tommy Edman is so ridiculous. He's an 87 WRC plus against right-handed pitching. He's had like a decent stretch lately, but the other thing also is there's so many good third basemen to pay up for tonight that aren't all that much more expensive than Tommy Edman. So I'd much prefer to get the few $100s more, go up to Nolan Arenado, Rafael Devers, who are playing at Coors Field, have easier matchups, and are just much better players than Edman.
Steve, you want to ride Edman's hot bat, or are you going to pay up for someone else?
I feel like this must be a typo. Like $4,000 would be a price that I'd pay for him. But, this is the second segment we're going to talk about Adrian Hauser, and we're not even at the third segment. We're really going to talk about him. But, I mean, if there's a way you're going to try to get at Hauser, it's with lefties. He's one of the 3 lefties that are in the Cardinals lineup for tonight. But Hauser is so good against righties that I don't think even if Edman gets on base, they're going to be able to do much with him. So $5,000 is just way, way too much to pay up for him, especially on a 15-game slate where there's so many teams with so many high implied totals. Like Greg said, there's a game at Coors Field tonight. There's just so many other pitchers to pick on that, and paying up $5,000 for Edman just absolutely makes no sense for me at all.
All right, here we go. Charlie Morton facing the Astros, I believe the first time he's in his old home to face his former team. Team he put up just under 24 DK points against last time out, though. Steve, you dropping 10-8 on him?
So it looks like he's actually been more unlucky than anything through the second half. I mean, he's already allowed 22 earned runs during the second half, which is through 48 1/3 innings, which is a huge amount when you consider during the first half, which is 112 innings, he only gave up 29. So it's more like he's getting unlucky because he's got a 3.45 xFIP. The problem is, though, this matchup against the Astros is just not a good one. The Astros have the lowest K percentage in the league against righties. Obviously, Morton's been really good with the strikeouts this season, but I'm not going to pay over 10K for a pitcher that has such a low strikeout, upside in this game here. When you got guys like Luis Castillo, Patrick Corbin against the Orioles, Justin Verlander, who's striking out 10 guys, at least 10 guys in his last 7 starts, just makes no sense to pay up for Morton here, and what's really not a good matchup to begin with.
Okay, Greg, Steve's kind of got me sold on this. What are the chances you're dropping all that money on him?
Yeah, I think Steve and I pretty much agree with everything across the board, but it's because I feel like a lot of these answers have been like kind of obvious. Like there's no issue with Morton. It's just that he's 10,800 in a really tough matchup, and there's guys who are cheaper than him in much better situations. Steve named a bunch of them. One guy who we didn't mention is Andrew Heaney, who's pitching at home against the Rangers. He just scored 1 million fantasy points against them last week, and that was in Texas. Now he's home against them. They're terrible against left-handed pitching, so I like Heaney a lot at 9,800. And the other thing, too, is that every dollar starting pitcher counts tonight because we want to pay up for some of those Coors bats. So I don't want to go all the way up to Morton when there's better guys for cheaper just right below him.
And you like Masahiro Tanaka for a value pitcher.
There we go. You have read my article. You've proved it.
Thank you for proving that, Emerson. Since his 50 fantasy point game on August 17th, Christian Yelich hasn't really been worth his salary. He's only averaging 8 points over his last 8 games. Greg, will he be worth $5,800 tonight against St. Louis?
I mean, he might be, but once again, there are other bats around him that I just prefer to pay up for. We've got Mookie Betts and JD Martinez who are playing in Coors Field. The Red Sox are going to score 1 million runs tonight. The Red Sox, we talked earlier about that 13.5 over-under. The Red Sox might hit it by themselves. The Red Sox might go out and score 15 runs tonight. They're a team to stack. So if I'm paying up for bats, it's just not going to be anybody who's outside of the Coors Field. So that's what has me off of Yelich.
Steve, how do you feel about Yelich?
I do actually like him as a really interesting tournament play because of the reasons why Greg just mentioned. You look at Yelich, who's away from Coors Field, not even close, and that's where people are going to be using the money. But Yelich is actually in a pretty good spot himself. They're facing Miles Michaelis, who's just been absolutely atrocious on the road away from Busch Stadium, especially to left-handed bats. I mean, who a better left-handed bat than Christian Yelich in this matchup here? So I actually think Yelich is pretty interesting. It's a lot to pay up for, but I imagine his ownership is going to be lower than usual because of all the different ways you can spend your salary tonight. So I like him as a one-off in this game. I'm definitely not going hard on him because I want to go with some of the more chalkier ways. I just think they're in better positions. But I think Yelich is someone who's in just as good of a spot as some of these other high-priced guys.
All right, good stuff, you two. We're tight on time, so we will have you back here shortly to wrap up the show with Put Up Your Bukes right after my little chit-chat with Ron Oster. Back here on The Sweat with legendary Cincinnati Red Ron Oster. And Ron, it is good to have you here. Thanks for joining DraftKings.
It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
We'd love to have you anytime, my friend. Spending your entire 13-year career in the Reds organization and as a native of Cincy, too. So what was it like getting to play for your hometown team?
Oh, it was unbelievable. I wanted to get drafted. I wanted to play Major League Baseball. I knew my mom used to say, "What are you going to do? What do you want to do?" I said, "I want to play Major League Baseball. I want to play baseball." She said, "Well, let's work out what's going to happen." I said, "I'm going to play. I'm going to." And I thought, I had 3 or 4 teams scouting me and looking at me in high school. And when the Reds drafted me, it was just, I don't know, I can't describe it. It was amazing. I can't say it was a dream come true because I never really dreamed of playing with them. I dreamed of playing Major League Baseball, but once they signed me, it was just unbelievable, awesome.
So, people still come up to you in the streets when they see you, out and about, or they're at the track and just want to kind of talk about your playing days all the time?
Yeah. Some of the older ones now, the young guys, the 20-year-old, 30-year-olds don't, they weren't born yet. So, but yeah, some of the older fans do.
All right, where do I get the best Cincinnati chili?
Excuse me?
Where do I get the best Cincinnati chili?
Skyline. Skyline's got the best.
Is it? Okay, yeah. I have not been to Cincinnati before, but I have had Cincinnati chili, and I can only imagine how delicious it is in Cincinnati.
Yeah, Skyline's good. Empress is good, but Skyline's the best.
Okay, noted. The Reds' 1990 championship season, you were a key player on that team, your final year in the league. So we're talking about going out on top here. What's your favorite memory from that night 29 years ago?
My favorite memory is that my family was there. They were out in Oakland, and they got to come down the field and celebrate with us and a little bit. And my favorite memory, I think, was just when Tom Benzinger caught the ball. That's what you play for. You play for a World Series ring, and I was on some bad teams in the early 80s, and just to get that ring and have my family see it. And, I had a son that was born on that year too, so that's pretty memorable.
Yeah. What comes to mind when you think about those few seasons that you shared with Parker?
He's the funniest guy I ever played with. I mean, in the clubhouse, he could get on people, and if you got on him, he was right back at you. He's called me. I had the afro. He's called me Little Orphan A, and I just remember him. He couldn't get the best.
Yeah, and I read that in 1986 too. I was researching a little bit before the interview. I mean, the guy played every stinking game that season. That's almost unheard of these days. What a workhorse.
Yeah, the guy's unbelievable. I mean, you look at his stats and compare them to some of the guys that are in. They're comparable. Why he isn't in like Concepcion, and then I have no idea.
All right, so when your playing days were done, you spent 6 years as a coach for the Reds. Who was the best player you coached during that span?
No, I don't know if I really coached him because I was the infield coach and the third base coach.
Okay.
Ken Griffey Jr.
Nice.
I was around. I used to love to throw him batting practice. You throw the ball, batting practice isn't easy to throw if you want to get it in a certain spot, but it didn't matter to him. He started out hitting the ball out of the ballpark in left field, and then he'd go to center field, to right field. That guy was, and you could hear his bat. When you're throwing the ball, you can hear his bat go through the strike zone. It made like a swish, and just something that you don't need to speak to other players.
All right, so what do you think the biggest difference between the game we watched today and in the game you played?
Well, you don't want to answer that question. You can't even break up a double play now.
Yeah.
You block the plate as a catcher. What's next? I don't understand. You break up a double play, that could win you a game. That could be the run win you a game, and now you can't do it. You got to slide straight into the base, and I got my knee torn up turning a double play, and it's just not baseball to me. That's not baseball. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me.
So is it too? Go ahead. Is it too soft for you now? The game? Is it becoming too soft?
Yeah, they're worried about injuries. I mean, and I think it's the salaries. They don't want If I get injured because of salaries, but if you're afraid of getting injured on the field, you have to be out there. Injuries happen. That's just part of the game. I don't think anybody's trying to hurt anybody. They're just trying to win a game.
What do you think the reason is we're seeing home run after home run after home run hit every night by every team? Is there a reason behind it?
I'll tell you what the reason's not. The reason's not that, what do you call it, the launch, the launch
angle, yeah.
I've never heard of that. But I don't know. It's just, guys are stronger, bigger, stronger. The parks are smaller. I think, I can't say the pitching not as good as it was. I think it is. I don't know. Like, the launch angle, that's what it is. But I definitely know it's not that.
Yeah, people are talking a lot about juiced baseballs nowadays. How much do you believe in that?
I think it is. I definitely think it is. They juiced it, I think, in 81. And I remember the ball getting to me quicker at second base when they juiced it then. And then, there's got to be something different with the baseball.
Hey, what's up? It's Brendan Glasheen in with this DraftKings Fantasy Flash. Yankees, Mariners, an MLB showdown option for you tonight. Check out Mike Ford at $6,000 as a flex. This first baseman has a pretty cool story. Ford was signed by the Yankees as an undrafted free agent back in 2013. The Princeton, New Jersey native was then scooped up by the Mariners in the Rule 5 draft prior to the 2018 season. Things didn't work out for Ford in the Pacific Northwest, so he got a second chance with the hometown Yankees. And the big swinging lefty has produced, as of late, 51 DraftKings points over his last 2 games, including a 30 spot on those same Mariners who let him go. Ford smashed 2 homers in his first 2 at-bats Monday night in Seattle. 4 of his 8 total home runs have come in the last 6 games. Ford says he has no hard feelings against the Mariners, but admitted it was nice to stick it to them a little bit. He might get another shot to do it again this evening.
Saving the best for last tonight on The Sweat. It's time for Put Up Your Bukes. Steve and Greg are back, and Steve is dishing out 3 bold picks for the night, along with DK fantasy point projections. Woo! And Greg will weigh in on his takes.
Sounds simple enough, doesn't it? Steve, your first buke, please.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Adrian Hauser here. I think we've talked about him 17 times already, but I have him tabbed for 21 DK fantasy points. He is just so cheap tonight. And, this is a pitcher who's averaging 19.6 DraftKings fantasy points over his last 5 games. I don't understand the pricing at all. And he faces a team that he just faced in one of his most recent starts against the Cardinals. Struck out 6, only allowed 1 earned run through 5 1/3 innings. The way to beat him is against with lefties, and the Cardinals simply just don't have enough to sustain that. Against righties at home, 2.11 WAR with 2.62 xFIP. As long as he can get through Edman, Fowler, and Colton Wong, which doesn't sound like a very intimidating group to begin with, I think Hauser should be fine tonight. So at this ridiculous pricing, it's one of my favorite plays on this slate.
Okay, Greg, feel free to fight him on that one.
Yeah, I can't really, because Hauser's just way too cheap. The only thing I'll push back against is I'm not sure he's going to get to 21 DK fantasy points, just because he doesn't typically work all that deep into games. He's only gone past 6 innings once the entire season. So if he gives up like 2 runs, then it could prohibit him from getting to that 21 DK fantasy points. But he's just too cheap. We need places to save the pitching because of how good the high-priced offenses are tonight. Hauser, yeah, roster him, pay up for the guys at Coors. He's too cheap.
Okay, that was very civil.
Wow,
boring.
yeah, very
Hit
civilized.
us with your second buke, please, Steve.
I think you'll have a little bit more pushback on this one here.
Nice.
But it's Yan Gomes for 14 DK fantasy points. This is not someone who typically does well against righties, but over his last 5 games, he's averaging 12 DK fantasy points. And now he has the luxury of facing this Orioles pitching staff and Aaron Brooks. Aaron Brooks against righties, 353 WAR, 5.39 xFIP. This is a starting pitcher who's allowing almost a run in inning so far in the second half here. I think the Nationals are going to be obviously an enticing stack to make on this slate here. There's no doubt about that. But Gomes is somebody who hits down in the lower part of the order. He's batting 8th tonight. And with the way that he's hitting, I have no problem trying to differentiate my stack here a little bit by taking Gomes. So, again, not somebody I would normally play against righties. His numbers against lefties are much stronger, but I think Gomes is in a pretty interesting spot here against Brooks, and I think it could be a good way to kind of mix up that national stack and kind of help your lineups here.
Okay, Greg, what do you think? 14 DK fantasy points for Gomes?
All right. Well, to quote our friend Jeff, Steve, what the heck? I mean, what is Yan Gomes has a 49 WRC plus against right-handed pitching this year. That makes him one of the worst hitters against righties of any position player in all of baseball. So I just don't get it. Like, could Gomes have a good game? Maybe, but it's just because you're going to get lucky. There's no skill involved. He's been terrible all season, in particular against right-handed pitching. He's gone over 10 DK fantasy points in 2 of his last 10 games, even though over that stretch he's hit better than he has at other ports in the season. So I just don't get it. Like, there's so many better players pretty much at any position that you could roster.
Not a chance in heck, Steve.
Nothing, Steve, huh?
I mean, that's fine. I mean, I'll be very happy to screenshot Greg if it goes well. If it doesn't go well, then I'll just tuck and hide and just pretend I never said it. That's how you do it.
Yeah.
On the internet.
If it doesn't go well, I will deny it.
That's what we do in our business. The third and final Buke of the night, though. Steve, what do you think?
Yeah, we're going to go with Eddie Rosario here. I think actually the Twins are one of my favorite GPP stacks here just because they're actually pretty cheap overall. And, Lucas Giolito has taken them out. For the White Sox, we've seen how well he's pitched all season long, but where he's kind of had some issues here is against lefties, particularly at home. Giolito has a 4.28 xFIP. 5 of his 17 home runs have been hit here. Eddie Rosario's batting cleanup for the Twins. And while that normally isn't like a sneaky or a chalky play, I can see a lot of people staying away from the Twins here because of this matchup against Giolito. And we look at what Rosario has done on the road here. 13 of his 27 home runs have been hit against righties on the road. Quite frankly, Giolito hasn't been the same guy that we have seen in the first half. He's still pitching well. I definitely will give him that. But the Twins are such a good offense here that they can absolutely go off against. Feels like almost any pitcher at this juncture here. So I'm going to try to sneak Rosario in here for 12 DK fantasy points. Batting cleanup in a Twins offense definitely is not something that's a thing here, but I think they're in overall.
Greg, what do you think? 12 DK fantasy points is Steve's projection for this guy.
Yeah, not for me. It's a tough matchup. The other thing we have to consider here is that Eddie Rosario is coming back from a hamstring injury. He hasn't played in almost a week. He's had 3 games off, and they also had an off day in there. So I'm not comfortable with how is he going to look coming back from the hamstring injury. The other thing also is just Giolito's a really good pitcher. Even though he hasn't been quite as good in the second half of the season he was in the first half of this breakout season, a lot of it's just been due to bad luck. His FIP is much lower than what his actual ERA is. He's been done in by some bad sequencing. His BABIP is higher. Strand rate is a little bit higher. So I think that Giolito's still just as good as he's always been. And Rosario coming back from injury, no thanks, not for me.
No thanks, not for me. That's a very polite way to disagree, which, Greg, good for you,
Good
man.
job, Greg.
Right.
You always have the best manners out of all of our analysts.
Okay, slate-approved pick time, folks. Who's your lock for tonight's slate? Steve, who's it going to be?
I don't care if he's so expensive. I'm paying up for Patrick Corbin here against the Orioles. Like, he's just been on a completely different level during the second half here, and just the Orioles just have absolutely nothing to throw his way. The amount of strikeouts he could rack up in this game should make him worth the high salary, so I have no problem paying up for Patrick Corbin here against the Orioles.
Greg, who is your must-play tonight?
So I'm going to say go cheap at pitching with guys like Masahiro Tanaka and Adrian Hauser. Tanaka's numbers overall for the season haven't been great, but look at the lineup that the Mariners are playing right now. It's awful. Like, J.A. Happ had a really good game against them last night, and Happ's been as bad as any pitcher in baseball. You go cheap at pitcher, and then you could go up expensive for the bats at Coors Field.
Hey, Steve, is it hard to say or accept that the Rockies might be the best stack on the slate tonight against your Red Sox?
No, not at all, because Rick Porcello sucks. Like, I still can't wrap my head around the fact that this trash bag actually won a Cy Young award. Like,
he's easily the worst pitcher to ever won a Cy Young.
Oh, by far. Absolutely by far. But, yeah, I have no problem stacking the Rockies here. People always worry about ownership because it's Coors Field, but there's so many ways to spend up on this slate here that I don't think the ownership's going to be as bad as people might think it is.
Greg, if you could pick one player who is guaranteed to go lock tonight, who would it be?
Guaranteed to go lock. What does that even mean?
He's a lock to go yard.
Guaranteed to go lock.
Yeah, I need to reword my sentences.
So what do we reword?
He's a lock to go yard. Who would you pick?
That's kind of what I figured. I'm going to say JD Martinez. He's been hitting the ball much better as of late, playing in Coors Field. we've talked about that Rockies pitching staff, and they're just throwing some kid out there who basically has no chance to succeed. ERA north of 7 in the minor leagues. Now he's pitching at Coors Field. Come on.
All right, guys, you're incredible.
All right, guys, great stuff.
We're incredible. That's a show.
Not
We'll see you tomorrow at 6. It's going to be great.